Your muscles do more than keep you strong and keep you looking great. In fact, they are key to helping you stay healthy. On this week's episode of the Exercise is Health podcast, we're going to unveil 3 little known reasons why that is. We're going to cue our introduction and we're going to dive right into this conversation. Hey, welcome back, exercisers, to the Exercise is Health podcast, brought to you by Exercise for Life Studios, where we believe that your health is your most valuable asset. And the single best thing that you can do to both boost and protect this asset is exercise. Specifically, exercise is geared to building the health and function of your muscles. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie.
And today we are diving into this idea of your muscles do so much more than just help you feel strong, help you move well, keep you looking good. They are actually vital to you staying healthy. And today we are going to discuss 3 little known reasons why. And this is so important because our general concept of what muscle is, what muscle does, is so many people think it's about performance and aesthetics, meaning like, oh, well, I don't want to look a certain way, so I don't really need to care about my muscle all that much, or I don't need to perform at a certain level, so I don't need to care about my muscles all that much, when in fact, caring about your muscles is key to not only being able to do the things you want to do for as long as you want to do them, but make sure your health stays intact every step of the way.
That's right, Charlie. I think we all kind of get the surface level idea of muscles, like what you were saying, the looks of them, like how big they are, how slender or lean they look. And then sometimes as we get older or we get some injuries, we realize how powerful they are in helping us move around or perform, whether that is in an athletic event or performing in your life, right? Like daily life activities. But as you alluded to, muscles do so much more than that. And we're going to start with talking about how muscles impact your joints and your bones. A lot of times, people don't realize that your muscles are tightly integrated in how healthy and well your joints are doing and bones are doing. We really dove into this joint aspect a couple podcasts ago, but people don't really realize that if you don't have a joint, you won't have a muscle. That's how tightly related they are. There are no muscles where there are no joints. They always go together because muscles move your joints. And when muscles move your joints, not only are they moving them, but they're pulling on them, stopping them, supporting them. And so one of the integral parts that muscles have in your joints is supporting them. So muscles will help keep your joints healthy, strong, less symptomatic than they would otherwise. We've even seen people with very structurally problematic joints like arthritis or spurs, things that are growing on their joints, things like that, that should be the reason why their joints are bothering them. And then we change how their muscles are functioning and they start feeling great. So I think a lot of people don't realize that having joints functioning well and feeling well is so important to your health because it allows you to continue to exercise.
Absolutely. You nailed it, Julie, where you said, hey, not only do your muscles help to move your joints and help to keep your joints supported, they also are vital to keeping your joints healthy. Okay, the motion is vital to keeping your joints healthy, but also your muscles put force through your joints, which is a key component to keeping your joints healthy. And like we said in that podcast, we want to reiterate this today. When there is a joint issue, 100% of the time, we have seen an associated muscle issue. And when we get the muscle issue taken care of or get the muscles functioning better and stronger, more times than not, that joint issue, if it's not completely resolved, it is largely resolved. Like you were saying, that's how integral and how intertwined the muscles are with your joints. But it's not just your joints that the muscles affect the health of, they also affect the health of your bones. And this is something that you've been talking a lot about lately, Julie, with osteoporosis and really what women in particular need to be focusing on when they're exercising to prevent and reverse the density loss of their bones that happens for so many women, and a large part of this is really making sure that they're challenging your muscles, or that they are challenging their muscles. So can you speak on that a little bit?
What many women are getting more and more aware of, and I think the medical community is starting to come around to this, is that exercise is an important piece to keeping our bones healthy. But that's where the conversation kind of ends, but that's really where the conversation starts. It's like saying, hey, great, you need to exercise for your bones, but now we know that we not only need to exercise, but we need to exercise in very specific ways, specifically lifting heavy weights and or adding impact training. We know that high force is the big factor in either exercise changing your bones or not, because most studies actually prove that exercise is not changing your bones, because when it comes to women with osteoporosis, they apply light weights, light bands, yoga, Pilates.
So
and we
how
know,
they're exercising is not correct, or is not
right.
even, it does not even meet the minimum baseline for what's needed to change their bones.
Right, right. But then in the few studies where they actually did test heavy weights, which most people are like, what? You shouldn't be lifting heavy weights if you have osteoporosis. That was the only type of exercise that actually changed bones. But here's the thing that changes bones is when muscles pull on their bones and compress the bones. Different than joint compression. We always think of joint compression as something that's bad. But actually, when we have compression and pulling on bones, that's when they start to change to become more dense. And so we know that when we're lifting heavy stuff, then it makes our muscles pull on our bones more, which creates density in the bones. It's like that physical component. And without that, we know that our bones don't have really a big reason to stay dense, because most women, as they get older, and men as they get older, we have a less rigorous lifestyle, right? We start hiring people to do the hefty work around our house. We start doing less and less because we can. And so there is a consequence to that. So keeping your muscles healthy and strong really can impact your bone density. And what's really cool is that if you're on this journey and you're starting early, like you're in your 20s or 30s or 40s, we know that you can do a lot less to build and maintain your bone rather than waiting until your bone is already declining and then trying to intervene. So either way, we know we need to be keeping our muscles healthy, strong, very stimulated with heavy weights to keep that bone tissue healthy.
Absolutely. All right, so that's way number one, that your muscles keep you healthy, okay? They keep your joints healthy and functioning well, and they help to strengthen your bones. Now, way number two actually has to deal with your brain, all right? It helps improve the health and function of your brain and your neurological health. Now, this is something we wrote about heavily in chapter 5 of our book, The Exercise for Life Method. In fact, we put out an entire course about it called Brain Health Secrets, where it's just going into how many ways exercise actually helps to improve the health and function of your brain. And you may have heard about this idea of like, hey, you exercise and your brain functions better. You exercise, it's good for your memory, it's good for the size of your brain, and, it's good for the health of your brain overall, your decision-making abilities, it helps to balance your mood and everything like that. Like, you may have heard these things, you may have experienced these things, but what you may not know is every single result of that is the reason why you are getting those brain health effects. So all of those results that you're getting from exercise, they are all due to your muscles contracting. It all comes back to your muscles working, to your muscles contracting, to your muscles squeezing. Every single brain health result that you get from exercise, including like balancing out your mood, balancing your neurotransmitters, improving your memory, increasing the size of your brain, warding off dementia, everything like that, it all comes back to your muscles. So your muscles are massively important for the health and function of your brain.
We also know that exercise is a large component in you being able to be creative and use critical thinking throughout your day. So not only is it like the delayed effects that you never see, but we know that people are more clear-minded, can make better executive decisions, making decisions throughout their day, being more creative. So being able to tap into that prefrontal cortex, that decision-making center in your brain, we know that that is more sharp and more clear when you are regularly exercising. So not only is it like the disease part where we're like preventing Alzheimer's, preventing different problems that happen in our brain and balancing out neurotransmitters and things like that, but it also will immediately help you in your day. We know that we can think more clearly. It helps us work through problems. So knowing that exercise not only is good for the physical part of our body that we normally think of, but it's also good for our brain health, which I'm so glad that also I think brain health is becoming more and more, brain and mental health is becoming more and more heavily talked about in the health field. But it's often talked about in terms of like taking time away, breathing, meditating, but also knowing that exercise can bring about really positive changes also.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought up the creativity piece, because that's something that needs such a little stimulus from an exercise and kind of muscle contraction perspective to see noticeable changes in. I think one of the papers I was reading said in as little as 10 minutes of just kind of going for a light to moderate walk, there were noticeable improvements, significant improvements in creativity. Another example is a podcast that I listen to that host this says regularly that, hey, there's no problem that outlasts a 20-minute walk. Like for him in his life, when it comes to running his companies and, handling all the things that come up with his team and everything like that, he goes, there's no problem that comes up that outlasts a 20-minute walk. And, it might be, a walk outside where, yeah, you're getting some fresh air, you're getting in the sun, you're being in nature, everything like that. But you are also working your muscles. You are also squeezing your muscles. And it's this muscle component that really has a profound effect on the health and function of your brain. So like we said, we do put out a, that was chapter 5, really in depth in our book, kind of going through all the different details of that, which you can get a free copy of at exerciseforlifemethod.com if you haven't checked it out already. And like I said, we also put out a course called Brain Health Secrets, where we really dove in to the how and why exercise and your muscles really impacts your brain. The third area that we want to talk about of how your muscles keep you healthy is with the production of something called myokines, which ultimately leads to the prevention of chronic disease. So if you may be familiar with this idea of like, hey, you exercise and you lower your risk for heart disease. You exercise, you lower your risk for cancer. You exercise, you lower your risk for diabetes, okay? All these different things, and it's true. It's very true. And the reason why it's true is because of something that your muscles produce while you're exercising. It's these things called myokines, okay? Now, we're not going to get into exactly the details of what myokines are. In fact, this is chapter 6 of our book, The Exercise for Life Method. We get into great detail about that. But what you need to understand is all the disease-preventing benefits that come from exercise, it all ties back to muscle contraction. You can follow it step by step, from a mechanistic standpoint. So like at a cellular level, like what's going on? How is, the chance for disease actually changed? And it's not the doing the stuff that is the thing. It's not like, oh yeah, I exercise, so I get to check that off my list. And so now I've just decreased my, my risk for developing heart disease. It's like, no, it comes back to muscle contraction. And your muscles are the magic tissue within your body that really has a large influence over all of that from a prevention and reversal of chronic disease.
There's a handful of chronic diseases that start with something you guys have all heard of, which is insulin resistance. Have you guys heard of that one? So what we often aren't realizing is that when we are building muscle, using muscle, contracting muscle, it is the biggest sucker-upper of glucose in your blood. So usually insulin sensitivity, we're noticing that arresting glucose levels are getting higher. You probably went to the doctor and they took a fasted blood test and said, uh-oh, you're getting in that range where your body's not filtering out enough glucose. Here's the solution. Eat less glucose. Put less in. But what we don't realize is that when we're living our normal American mostly sedentary lifestyle, what's happening is that we're dumping glucose in, and even if you lessen that, you can still make a huge impact by filtering more out. And the best number one way to do that is through exercise, and specifically contracting and building muscle tissue. And the more that we are contracting and building muscle tissue, the more fuel that they will need. And that fuel is glucose. So if we have a high demand in our body to say, hey, we have a place for you, glucose, instead of just chilling in my blood, let's go and fuel this muscle tissue. Not only are you going to start immediately making changes with that chronic ailment that we know that leads to a lot of other chronic diseases, but you'll also be getting all the other health effects that happen when you're building and using muscle tissue.
Absolutely. This was a talk that I gave for the 2021 Schaumburg Health Summit, really discussing insulin resistance and how exercise decreases insulin resistance, improves insulin sensitivity. Exactly like you're saying, Julie, it's largely due to the contraction of muscle and the building of muscle. But it's not just the building of muscle itself, like that's what we might call it, like the house for the glucose to go live in. It also builds stuff within your body to get that glucose shuttling better. So it's like it builds more city buses and longer and bigger city buses for more glucose to ride on to go to their home in the muscle. And so it becomes so much easier for your body to clear glucose from your blood and put it into your muscle cells, which also helps to keep it out of your fat cells when you are exercising not only regularly but really focused on building muscle. And so if you want a copy of that talk, actually you get it for free when you get our book, The Exercise for Life Method. So there's just a little incentive there. And not only do you get all the details that we do in the book, but there's so much other information that we've put out in relation to these topics, and you get access to it all as well. So those are the 3 different ways that we wanted to highlight today as far as how your muscles actually keep you healthy. Again, a lot of times we think, oh, muscle is about, aesthetics. It's looking good in your bathing suit. It's, about having a certain physique, or it's about performing. It's being able to, lift more weight, run faster, jump higher. And those are all true, but it's not only about that. It's also about keeping you healthy. And actually the most powerful aspect of muscle is its ability to influence your health, both positively when you have more of it, when it's working well, when you're able to do more with it, and negatively when you are losing it, when it's not functioning well, when you're able to do less and less and less because of it, okay? And so having muscle that is not only strong, but also functioning well, that you are actively trying to build and support and maintain, that is a crucial aspect of being able to live the life that you want to live, continue to have the physical freedom that you want to have, and keep doing all the things in life that bring you joy for as long as you want to do them. Now, if you want our guidance in helping you do exactly that, that's what we teach you to do within the Exercise for Life membership. And for a limited time, you can get 30 days to our membership absolutely for free, $0 up front. You just let us know what you want your login information to be, and you'll be able to access the entire membership. All you have to do to get access to that is go to www.exerciseforlifestudios.com. And like I said, if you do want a copy of our book, you just cover the cost of shipping and handling, and you'll get access to our talks and everything like that. That you can find at exerciseforlifemethod.com. So we'll put all those links in the show notes below. But those are the primary resources if you want to dive deeper into what we were talking about today and get the practical application to help you utilize what we were talking about today. So who do you know that needs to hear this episode? Who do you know that thinks that, oh, I don't want to focus on my muscle because I'm not caught up in all the aesthetic stuff, or, I'm not trying to really get stronger or anything like that. Share this episode with them so they can understand why it's so important to make sure their muscle keeps functioning well, to make sure that they are continuing to focus on their muscles when they are working out, to impact so many different areas of their health. And while you're online, head on over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leave us a rating and review. Wherever you listen to us, if you found value in this conversation today, let us know by leaving us that 5-star rating and review. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. We always appreciate it. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week.
This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Julie and Charlie Gates, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical issue, consult a licensed physician.